To the surprise of QPR fans across the land, Rangers signed two players on loan on deadline day. The first being Newcastle United's Isaac Hayden and the second Joe Hodge from Wolves. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at Hayden in particular, diving into his career to date and what he will be bringing to the R's. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing, it really helps the channel out. 6'2" defensive midfielder Isaac Hayden was born in Chelmsford in March 1995. At the age of 28, he brings a wealth of top-tier experience to QPR, with 118 Premier League appearances and 65 in the Championship. He's also had a loan spell in Belgium earlier this season, and appearances at every youth level for England up to the age of 21. Hayden's playing career began at Brentwood Boys and Southend United until he was picked up by Arsenal's academy in 2008, joining at the age of 13. His hard work at Arsenal over the next 5 years would result in him signing his first senior contract in 2013, and he would go on to make his first team debut in the third round of the League Cup in September of that year at the age of 18 years old. He played 84 minutes in midfield before being subbed off for Christopher Olsen, with the Gunners going on to beat West Brom 4-3 on penalties after drawing 1-1 in regular time. He would make a further 16 appearances for Arsenal in Premier League 2 that season, scoring 2 goals and making 3 assists, and also collecting a red card while he was at it. He would have to wait another year to make a second appearance for Arsenal's first team, this time playing centre-back in the League Cup against Southampton in a 2-1 loss. And after another 6 appearances in Premier League 2 that season, collecting 2 assists, the club felt he was ready for more first team experience and sent him out on a season-long loan to Hull in July 2015. This was Hull City's first season back in the Championship after 2 in the top flight, and Isaac would make his debut for the Tigers on the opening day of the season, playing in his natural central defensive midfield position in a 2-0 home win against Huddersfield. He would play the first 6 games of the season back-to-back, a run that Hull would lose just 2 of, before spending the next 20 or so games on the bench. But he would make a total of 24 appearances in all competitions for the club in a promotion-winning season via the playoffs. Not bad if you ask me for a 20-year-old given the strength of that whole team. And to top it off, he would score his first senior goal that season in a 6-0 thrashing against Charlton. That impressive start to senior football would lead to him attracting the attention of Rafael Benitez's Newcastle United, relegated themselves to the Championship in 2016. Hayden signed a 4-year contract with Newcastle for a fee of £2.9 million and immediately went in as Newcastle's #1 central defensive midfielder, making 38 appearances in all competitions in their league-winning 2016-17 season, collecting 2 goals and 4 assists. Hayden would play all but 4 of Newcastle's first 32 Championship appearances until an ankle injury required him to have surgery, but he would be back to play their final league games of the campaign. Back in the Premier League, he would retain his place in the team under Benitez, making 29 appearances in all competitions and scoring his first Premier League goal against Southampton. Newcastle would finish 10th in their first season back in the top flight, and although ruled out with a red card and some small injury knocks at the start of the following season, Hayden would again make 28 appearances in the 2018-19 campaign and guiding the club to a 12th place finish. Now that summer, Newcastle United would announce that they had parted ways with Rafael Benitez, with reported clashes between him and Mike Ashley. He would be replaced by Steve Bruce, who despite spending £65 million in transfers that summer, would retain faith in Hayden, and he would make 35 appearances that season, with 29 in the Premier League, his highest in the top flight at that point of his career. The club would finish 13th that season, but Hayden would miss the end of the season with a hamstring injury. Now this injury is significant because it starts to form a bit of a pattern from here onwards. Despite his injury at the end of that season, in the summer of 2020, Hayden would sign a 6-year contract with the club, clearly indicating their faith in the player. And that season he would make 27 appearances for the club, missing the final 9 games again with a knee injury. But after a 12th place finish that season, the following year, 2020-21, the following season would see Newcastle struggling. In the first half of the season, Newcastle were rapidly hurtling towards relegation until Eddie Howe's arrival in November 2021. Hayden would play the first 17 of 18 Premier League matches that season, of which it took Newcastle 15 before securing their first win. Soon enough though, Hayden would pick up another long-term knee injury, which this time meant that he would require surgery, in turn meaning that he would miss out on the second half of Newcastle's season, one that would see Eddie Howe commandeer a drastic U-turn, with the club finishing 11th despite their atrocious start. The problem here for Hayden is that given the significant transformation the club underwent in the second half of that season, with new owners, a new manager and a refreshed starting 11, by the time he had recovered, he was no longer part of Eddie Howe's plans for the future, despite signing a long contract just 9 months prior. That would lead to him joining Norwich City on loan last season, one that he would miss the first half of due to ongoing knee problems, before making 14 championship appearances, but ultimately then missing the remaining 21 matches with the recurring knee injury. And in May of last year, Howe would formally address that Hayden no longer was part of his plans for the future, meaning in September he joined Belgian Pro League side Standard Liège on a season-long loan. He made 11 appearances there earlier this season, managing to avoid any injury problems so far, before his loan deal was cut short, presumably by QPR expressing an interest. So that brings us to the present. At 28 years old, he does have a lot of Premier League experience that will be invaluable to what is a very fragile QPR side, playing part in Hull City's playoff winning season, starring as Newcastle's central defensive midfielder of choice in their championship winning campaign, and making a significant amount of appearances for Newcastle in the Premier League until his knee issues began in 2019. And that's the elephant in the room here really. Here we have a seasoned player that clearly has a lot to offer. But the knee problems clearly are a concern, because until this season they have ruled him out for the best part of 18 months to 2 years. It's very reassuring to see that that's not the case this season, but he's still only made 25 appearances over the past 2 seasons, so it may take him some time to get up to speed. If he can stay fit, we hopefully have ourselves a midfield general, something we have so sorely been lacking, and we've already seen the calmness and class that he can bring to the midfield in his sub-appearance against Blackburn on Saturday. It's very unfortunate what happened to him at Newcastle, because until their relegation scare in 21-22, he had been a key component of that side in the Premier League, and one that the club wanted to keep around for the long-term future. Interestingly, some Newcastle fans have questioned why he has gone out on loan, given their lack of central defensive options through injury and the suspension of Sandro Tonali. The general consensus though is that they have better quality options there, but he is still a player that can very much do a job at championship level. And I must say, it's quite reassuring to some degree that this is a player that has been involved in a relegation scrap and not just promotion-winning seasons. So we know that Hayden is predominantly a defensive midfielder, and he has the ability to slot in at centre-back when needed, but what kind of player is he more generally? Earlier in his career, Arsene Wenger described him as a player whose key assets are concentration, intelligence and strength. And though he's picked up a few red cards, he seems to have a calm and patient temperament, with a really strong reading and judgment of the game, as well as some very well-timed tackles. He's not just a destroyer in the middle of the park though. He can carry the ball up the pitch and distribute it well, and we saw that with his high passing accuracy when he came on against Blackburn on Saturday. And it's that ability to carry the ball that I'm particularly interested in, because we have seen a lot recently until our January signings that we're really struggling to get the ball out from the back and up to our forwards. It's crucial that we have someone who can break up play, but they also need to be someone that can pivot and advance up the pitch. And by the looks of his fleeting cameo on Saturday, we may well have addressed this. What will be really interesting if his fitness holds up is whose place he takes in that team. I'd honestly say that it's probably going to be Field that is the one that is replaced. Colback, like Hayden, has that ability to break up play but also move the ball up the pitch. So I think they'll both be edging ahead of Field. Honestly, injury issues aside, this looks like a really smart bit of business. The key is going to be in managing his minutes, and if we can do that, he can have a really big impact on Rangers for the rest of this season. That's signing number 2 of 3. What do you think of this signing? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you have enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.